myself, and you give power and influence to the wrong people. Look how it turns out. You have to hype yourself up, and nobody else on the external is hyping you up. You have Hello, and welcome back to Ascension with V. I am your host, Stashia Jeanette, aka V, and today I'm going to talk about something that was requested by one of my YouTube viewers, and the topic was on essentially demonology, how to spot demons, why they're angry with light workers, spiritual warfare, working around them, hybrids, new levels, new devils, and the likes. But before we dive in, there's some things that I want to clarify, some things that I'm going to add, some things that I'm going to discuss that kind of give the bigger picture of everything that we're currently dealing with here on planet Earth. So I will be referring to my notes. I wrote an entire thing that's going to be posted onto a blog later on at some point. If it's not when this podcast comes out, it'll be probably within the week after. It's just a lot's happening right now. So, but I did make like a little mini thesis kind of about, it was a channeled thing about what we're dealing with right now in terms of this. And this is where my notes were derived from for this episode. So the first thing that I'm just going to hop on in is it's not always demons. I want to make mention that it's not always the demons as a specific being that's angry or is trying to stop light workers. There are a large number of nefarious entities, many that have been masquerading in the shadows. They have become a common enemy amongst many different beings. So, right, like what we're in the process of dealing with right here on planet Earth, in this spiritual warfare that we have been a part of, and then even before, but this has been going on for a long time since the Orion Wars, right? And if you're not familiar with the Orion Wars, I would highly suggest that you guys kind of pause this or go and do some research on it and kind of like get a little background on the Orion Wars and what that was all about and who it affected, what planets, what galaxies were involved, because it'll kind of give you the context, the deeper, the meat of what it is that I'm talking about here. But for the most part, there have been one common enemy that has started to become more and more apparent over the last couple of centuries here on planet Earth, right? I mentioned this when I was talking about the Redemption Line episode, and if you guys haven't seen that episode, that would be one that I'll try to remember to link in when I'm doing the editing of this. But there were beings here prior to this one common enemy, nefarious entity that we're dealing with currently got here. And when these nefarious entities got here, they kind of gave the beings that were already here a choice of you can either fall in line with us, bow to us, right? Like bend the knee to us and serve us, do what it is that we want you to do, work towards our agenda for this planet, or get effed. Like, and the get effed version was they got essentially condemned, and I don't know another way to put it, but like enslaved, captured, bound to this planet without any chance of parole or escape. And that is something that took place some time ago. Again, I can't give you the exact time frame that this took place. However, that is a crucial backstory for this of what I'm talking about. So when people blame everything on demons, I believe they're oversimplifying something that's a lot bigger. The immediate beginning story here is the hero versus villain story. From my experience, what we've been taught, especially through religious texts and churches, has been stripped of much of its core truth and watered down into somewhat of a fairy tale designed to keep people into submission and disconnected from their true connection to God's source universe. Within that construct, there's the villain and there's the hero, right? And both have received many different names and forms depending upon the religion, what time era this was formed in, the culture, the location, and so on and so forth, right? The basis of the characters kind of stayed the same regardless of what time period or where people were receiving the narrative from. right? So there was still this one common theme that took place, regardless where you got the information from. So the overall purpose remained largely the same. Each was given minions. The hero was given the angels. The villain was given demons. Each carries out the bidding for their respective masters. Then we're taught all the things we shouldn't do so we don't become like the villain or become possessed or corrupted by the villain's demons. Right. I feel like that's a if you know any kind of sacred text, like you know the construct for what it is. Like I said, I grew up Christian, so that was my background of you had the thou shall nots things, and these are the things that you shouldn't do, and the things that you're taught while you're in church or while you're going to whatever your church is, of the rules, right? The lay of the land for your respective religion. So yeah, then we're taught all the things we shouldn't do so we don't become like the villain or become possessed or corrupted by the villain's demons. What was lost in translation is we're given countless names and figures labeled as demons. Their actions become labeled demonic. However, much what was originally written became lost in translation. And many people living during those periods had never encountered today what we recognize as mental illnesses, right? Like the church was often quick to interpret mental breakdowns, trauma, famine induced distress, and psychological suffering as possession. So a lot of times, and then like even outside of this, you go back to like this the Salem witch trials type things. If you wrote any kind of self help type of book, if you wrote anything that was about healing, if you wrote anything that in that time period was viewed by the church as demonic, that could be anything, but specifically if you were writing about things to help the mind, the body, and the soul, you were casted out of the village and you were attacked by the villagers with the pitchforks and the torches and burned at the stake for so much as writing something that they viewed as demonic or they viewed as unacceptable or they viewed as witchy or occult or whatever the thing you could just be talking about writing about plants, how plants are medicine, right? And that's like, you've crossed the line. You've done too much, right? So it didn't take much, especially way back when these types of sacred texts were written, for anything out of the norm to be very much labeled as a person behaving as demonic, a person behaving as possessed, a person, something that fell under the label from a religious standpoint as possession. And now as time has gone forward, clearly we now can look back at things and be like, oh, well, maybe these people were suffering from X, Y, and Z, or maybe this was the case that was going on, or maybe people who were, labeled as witches or doing, occult magic or doing this, that, and the third actually were just doing normal things. It's much like, when they found out what the oarfish actually was, they were like, that's probably what the Loch Ness monster was based off of. Right. They kind of went back and looked at history and tried to myth bust about what things were or were not. But unfortunately, we haven't had like any kind of revision to the things of aforementioned from what was labeled as demonic or what is labeled as like a demonic possession, right? Everybody just thinks that anything that happens to somebody where they start tweaking out or they're going through this, that, and the third, like, oh, they're possessed. Or, oh, it's spiritual attack. Or it's the demons doing this, that, and the third. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of times where there are demons who are unleashed onto this earth who are literally just here to balance the order of the universe of chaos and peace, right? Their job is just out here to just be on demon time all the time, to cause chaos in the world, to keep the natural balance of the universe going. Period. Point blank period. That's it. It's not that there is like some vendetta against any one particular human. It's just that's That's their purpose of being here. Much like, if you want to give it the flip side of the script, you could say that the divine beings are here to invoke the order of peace and to usher in the balance of protection to balance out that's caused by chaos. There is a natural order and flow of things here, but the line between these things can be very easily skewed, but it's not to dismiss and say that there is not such things as possessions. But however, what we're dealing with right now is, and just from what I've seen and what I've dealt with personally within people and in everyday life, like I can see it. There is a lot more of the nefarious entity attack and manipulation going on, more so than there is demons just coming out and wanting to nefariously possess humans. Really, if I'm going to keep it a buck hundred, most demons could care less about what's going on with a one individual specific human. I feel like I need to plug this in. Humanity may have only been concerned with demons at one point in time, but that period was incredibly short. For well over 1,000 years, we've been dealing with much more than just demons. So, do demons exist? Absolutely. Can they be dangerous? Absolutely. Can they drain people? Absolutely. Can they cause physical harm? Yes. But because you will allow them to, the differentiation between demons and these nefarious entities that we have been dealing with for some time now. Can they cause physical harm? Yes, but because you'll allow them to. So the explanation is demons operate off of a code of ethics. And I know it sounds hilarious. I know it sounds like some crazy, thing, but it's the same way in which you would say divine beings cannot interfere with your free will. So like if you want help from your divine beings or your guides, your angels, whatever you want to call them, you have got to ask. You have to ask them to do so because they can't intervene with your free will. Right. So if you don't ask, they're just kind of like, we're here, but ask us to. Right. So same thing applies here for demons, is that demons operate under the code of ethics, and it's neither side can simply interfere with humanity however they please. Angels respect free will. When they're asked to help, they're invited. And demons also have to disclose themselves. They have to reveal what they are and what their intentions are. Right. So this is the part that gets lost in translation and that people don't understand, right? So it's almost like you've seen those videos about like vampires have to be like invited into your home and things of this nature. Like there is a code of ethics amongst these beings, and they have to absolutely tell you up front, like, one, I'm a demon, and two, I'm gonna break your heart, or I'm here to take advantage of you and break your heart, or I'm going to destroy your life. And like they can tell you however they divulge the information is of no consequence, right? So if they choose to tell you these things while, you're 10 shots deep into some Casamigos, it doesn't matter. They still told you, they still gave the disclosure, they still let you know what it was up front. And whether or not you choose to believe them, because again, like demons are very, very cunning, very charming, very attractive, and they know what you like. So regardless how they swoon you, and they will swoon you into allowing them permission to you, right? And so regardless whether you're intoxicated and whether they say it jokingly or whether they say it while they're like passionately staring into your eyes and kissing you and stroking your face, and you're just they still told you, right? They still let you know up front what it was, and these things happen very similarly within other things in our world, right? They are required to tell you what they're going to do, what their plans are for the masses, right? What they're going to do, what exactly is on the agenda, right? For the world, for the masses, for the people, whatever. And they'll put it in movies, they'll put it in commercials, they'll put it in cartoons, they'll put it in music, they'll put it in ads, they'll put it in the media, whatever the case may be, right? They put it out there like in plain sight for people to see and consume and digest every single day because it's a requirement, right? There are rules in these spiritual streets that all beings have to obey, no matter what side of the coin you want to flip it on, right? And but people just dismiss it as like, haha, that's entertainment. Oh, that was funny. Oh, that's a nice movie. Oh, that's far fetched because quite honestly, the truth is crazier than fiction. And most people don't have the capacity to even begin to fathom the amount of craziness that is actually taking place in their world. Right. So these people know that the average person is not going to catch their disclosures, when they're putting it out there, and it will be dismissed, and people are going to go about their lives just as they were prior to it being out there. If you've not seen Disclosure Day, I think that would be a great reference because it's the same thing. Like, is out there, like they put it out there, but again, people were like, "Oh, that was a good movie." Right? And that's it. So, recognizing demons. The way to recognize demons is the aforementioned thing, but also there will be very obvious signs if you can if you got eyes to see. And even if you don't have eyes to see, this one very blatant thing will be very difficult to dismiss, difficult to pass you by, is the fact that demons are otherworldly attractive because they're so they're right is to be charming, is to be alluring, is to get what they want, and that's just on period. And they're used to mating with humans, which is why we have so many like hybrid people walking around here, and they have no idea. Some of them know, right? Like I'm gonna keep it a buck under. Some people know. Some people are fully aware of that they're a little Inuyasha walking around here, right? Like some people know, but a large majority of people, especially the women, a lot of times the women don't know when they're in a relationship with a demon. They just think they've bagged like a 20 out of 10 on the attractiveness scale, and then that's it. But then, it's because the attraction, they are extremely attractive, magnetically attractive, intoxicating to be around and be in a relationship with. Like everything feels like you're high, or you're in some sort of like weird fever dream with them. It's insane. They draw people in effortlessly and often highly sexual, extremely possessive, and they want to isolate you from family and friends because they're possessive of you. And then your life starts to slowly fall apart, month after month after month. And and leaving becomes increasingly more difficult. And people often describe this as like, "Oh, that's just a narcissist." But like, no, man. No, this is like the key difference is the attractiveness. So if who you're thinking about doesn't fit that 20 out of 10 attractiveness, and you don't constantly feel like you are high as shit when you're with them, and it's not like some super weird like fever dream alternate reality, and like you will notice when you're with them, you will notice like this seems strange. If you don't have that constant euphoria experience while you're with them, even when things are falling apart, like when like I gotta get out of here, but it's it's too magnetic. It's too magnetic to try to leave from. You're just dealing with a regular human narcissist that needs to go to therapy. Like they both bad, but this is different. You know what I mean? Like they have a weird way of both loving you, protecting you, and isolating you, right? Like, and not only that, but they're like bloodhounds. Like they can spot you in a football field, like a mile away, and they can be like, "Oh, there's my girl," or like they'll know if something's up with you, they'll know immediately. and they speak weird, like ancient, like an ancient kind of dialect, as if they have been frozen in time for some time because they have, because they have. It's there will be signs, right? But if the people that you're thinking about, they they talk like regular normal people, right? Their dialect is of this era. This is not what I'm talking about. You have not been entrapped, ensnared by a demon. But if the above aforementioned things do apply to you, then congratulations, you have indeed experienced a demon. But it's very difficult for people to leave the grasp of being in a relationship with a demon. And especially like if they've vetted you, it's a wrap. Like it's really hard to get out of that because it's going to be the best sex of your entire life. It's going to be great. It's gonna be great. And again, like as if all the aforementioned things weren't already like a deterrent from leaving them, then that happens and they put the demon D or the demon P on you. Like it's like the str- the struggle. Listen, I went through it so you didn't have to. But you have got to have strong spiritual fortitude. You have got to have strong willpower to be able to want your soul and your freedom enough to get out of that relationship with them because like ultimately like it's toxic but a lot of people don't get out especially if they've bore them children, right? It's kind of a wrap after that, especially if you got multiple kids with these people because it's just really difficult. I don't have any kids, so I can't personally speak on this one as much, but I've seen it. I see it frequently. I see it almost every day. People walking around with their hybrid babies and the woman looking like very miserable, very miserable, but the husband is they're super attractive, and I'm sure she's getting the great sex at the end of the day, or vice versa. Like I said, it's not just limited to women that experience this. Like men also get lured in by demons. All right, they know what you like. They know what your physical attributes want. They know you want a big old booty. They know you want the big boobs. They know you want the particular body type that you want, the particular face that you want that they are handcrafted to lure you in, reel your ass up out that water and put the moves on you, right? And trap you with a baby. Like I see that a lot as well. And guys' lives just but their their baby mama is bad, it's dang. Yeah, so from my experience, many demons have reproduced with humans, creating hybrid bloodlines. Many parents don't realize what they're raising. These children can be extremely difficult during childhood because they're learning to regulate their tremendous demonic power with like their regular human side. Ultimately, usually by the age 13 or 14, like they will have had a a grapple with the sides of them. Like one side of them is going to take prevalence. One of them is going to be priority. And depending upon how the child was raised, it will determine which side it leans more to. And but it's a feat. It's a feat for parents to raise children, period. Like just regular normal human children. But then you add in an extra layer of complexity to you're now raising a hybrid demon, a half demon. Like that's rough. And then if you have no cognizance of the fact that you even vetted a demon and that this is what your child is, like the whole thing can go bad very quickly, and then now you're like taking your child, they're taking their kid to like all kinds of doctors trying to be like, how do I fix this, and third? And really what they need is a person that's familiar with exactly what it is that they have going on. And that's like a needle in a haystack, right? So this brings me back to what I mentioned earlier. The larger concern isn't simply demons, it's the broader presence of what I describe as nefarious entities operating behind the scenes. From my perspective, this is what many people are actually encountering every single day. It's very easy to be manipulated by these nefarious entities, and let me explain them in a way that people will understand, right? So currently right now On planet Earth, there are 12 ruling families that control everything that happens on this planet. Those nefarious entities reside within those 12 beings. Those 12 beings are the 12 escaped beings from the Orion Wars who came to Earth and made Earth their playground, theoretically. Right, theoretically. And so, theoretically, these 12 nefarious entities got together with the common agenda and rolled out what we have today as the Earth Rule Book, as the Earth guidelines of how the people of Earth will conduct themselves and how to keep the people of Earth suppressed, asleep, under control, to not have the ability to access their true powers, to not have the ability to see what's truly happening, to see beyond the illusions, the manipulations, the miasma, the smoke and mirrors, and to not be able to unite and band together or use their collective power to overthrow them or to threaten the plan or to threaten the agenda. And so essentially, theoretically, this is what this entire spiritual warfare has been about recently. As I've said before, is this spiritual war is it's not, this war is for your soul. And ultimately that's what they want. You know, it's not really about anything other than your soul, keeping people asleep, taking as many people down with them as possible. And they've done a really good job of keeping the people of Earth out of their true essence, out of their true power, out of their true connection to source. And but things are in the process of changing. And that's why now, right now, on this time on Earth, there is kind of like a turning up, like a cranking up level of the amount of nefarious entity attacks that are happening. Because what nefarious entities do, these 12 nefarious entities do, is they appoint people in different positions of authority. It doesn't matter what sector it is, what category it is, what niche it is, whether it's religious, whether it's the church, whether it's the pastor, whether it's a guru, whether it's the spiritual community, whether it's the spiritual leader, whether it's the monk, whether it's this, that, and the third, right? People that are in authority positions that oversee small masses of people, influencers, right? It doesn't matter. Whoever has a large following and audience, and it's not everybody, obviously, right? It's not. They've been very selective. I would go so far as to say it's those that they know they can still control by some means of the physical tethers, right? So like this is where the having no desires thing becomes like a really strong point for people at this point in time, because you can't really be manipulated by these types of nefarious entities. But like when you are so desperately wanting, say, to be famous, or you're so desperately wanting to be a billionaire or a multimillionaire, to have 5 million followers on whatever platform or this, that, and the third, it's an exchange, right? It's an exchange, and everybody thinks that like, oh, it's just demons that are doing this. I made a deal with X, Y, and Z, and sure, maybe some of you guys are doing that. Now, again, it's not me. I can't I can't speak from that. I don't know. I'm sure that is something that still is taking place. It's not even I'm sure. That is something that is taking place, you know, in different kinds of cultures. People are absolutely doing that. They're doing whatever they can to achieve their worldly desires, right? They're to have their wishes granted. And unfortunately, it is what it is. There are still demonic beings that will try and grant those types of deals, but the amount of power that you have got to have usually falls into these nefarious entities to grant these bigger things or to appoint people, right? Because the 12 families control everything that we consume, theoretically. And theoretically, say you wanted to be internet famous, or even if you wanted to be musically famous, acting famous, writing famous, whatever the case may be, these nefarious entities have their hands in that sector, in that field. And so they ultimately decide who gets to have access to the top, who gets to have that kind of exposure, who gets to have those kinds of masses of followings, right? That's real. And so they very carefully select people who are willing to follow those rules, whether that's you wanting to be a singer or that's you wanting to just, like I said, be internet famous. Like, they know, they already know. They can tell by your spiritual output or lack thereof, right? They can tell by your spiritual ranking or lack thereof. They can tell whether or not you still have a soul or whether you're a hollow or not. They know off rip just by looking at your content or just by looking at your social media, right? They will have someone go and vet you prior to putting you on, right? And if at any point you give that you are an anomaly or that you are a sovereign in this world, theoretically, they will make sure that you are cut off from having a greater exposure for as long as they possibly can. Right. So and they will make sure that your experience here on Earth is difficult. Your chances of you having the opportunity of fulfilling your destined mission of your purpose is significantly heightened. And so I say that to answer the question of like why are light workers or those with like high spiritual ranking or those with doing these special ops missions here on earth, why do they get attacked or why do they have such difficult experiences or why are they targeted? And that's the reason. If you get to the point where people start finding you you people that I'm talking to here, you have the ability to invoke change and a ripple effect very quickly by the people that come in contact with you, right? So if you're an anomaly and you're a sovereign and you come in contact with other people, you then awaken them to become the same, right? You awaken their powers, you awaken their abilities, you open their eyes. And why would they want that? Right? Why would they want that to happen? So you have got to be able to understand the game in its entirety before you can start to unpack these things that happen in life because of the game. And it's literally just for the purpose of trying their damnedest to maintain what little bit of control that they still have while they still have it. The clock is ticking, right? The clock is ticking, but what they're doing now is going after anybody who has what I call a Swiss cheese spiritual body. Swiss cheese with the holes in it. You know what I mean? When I look at an astral body or a spiritual body, I can tell like very quickly where people have holes, right? And those holes are weaknesses, weak spots, infiltration points where nefarious entities can very easily get in there and corrupt you. And a lot of people are walking around here very Swiss cheesy because they have, for one reason or another, been discouraged from going within, from doing the internal work, from sitting with themselves in just silence and meditation and asking the really hard hitting questions for themselves, like, why am I the way that I am? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Why do I hurt? A lot of people out here try their damnedest to avoid doing any kind of self accountability, of doing any kind of internal, just asking the hard hitting questions, going back and sifting through their childhood and looking at the indoctrinated beliefs or systems or structures that formed them during their very formative years as a child, right? What handed down traumas and jelly beans were you given from your parents, from your grandparents, from your great grandparents, and so on and so forth, and then unpack that and decide, are those things even true for you right now as it is, right? Like as a kid, a lot of us don't have the ability to decide what it is that we're going to consume or what it is that we're going to be instilled with because That's just what it is. Our parents give these impressions to us. Our parents throw these things, these ideas, these limitations, these beliefs onto us. And then that is what it is, and then we're raised very much so to never question, right? You don't question the authority figures. You don't talk back. You don't question, the God. You don't question the teachings. You don't question X, Y, and Z. And that set everybody up to go out here walking around as full grown adults at whatever big age they are, never going and doing a lick of internal work or fixing the holes. It is just more holes on more holes on more holes. And then we get here to where we're at right now, and they are so vulnerable to being attacked. And that's why a lot of people right now are walking around as just hosts for these nefarious entities because they have been fully infiltrated through the holes. Pause. But that's what it is. We have a lot of hollow people walking around here. And the way to combat this is simply by just doing the work within, is simply by, if you need to go seek therapy, seek therapy. If you need to start just having a little hiatus within yourself and doing the hard hitting, asking the hard hitting questions, you got to do it. You have got to understand who you are and what your weaknesses are. What are your triggers? And confront those triggers when they come up to you, when they bubble up to the surface, because they will. What happens is the universe will constantly send you things like a training ground. Earth is a training ground. Earth is a school. So ultimately, you will always be given repetitive lessons on things that you've missed before. And those lessons will come in ways of triggering you, whether it be a person, a place, a thing that doesn't go your way. Something will happen to trigger these Swiss cheese hole things that have not been addressed, for you to then look at them and decide that you're going to take the bull by the horns then and be like, no, 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 I'm not doing this anymore. No, no, I'm not going to allow this. But you have got to be cognizant of the things that are your triggers. You've got to be cognizant of the things that are your wounds, that are literally still gaping, bleeding holes within you that you have not dealt with. What hurt you when you were a child? What hurt you when you were a teenager? What hurt you? What happened to you in these prime years, formative years of your life? And really go in, because if you don't know, you can best believe that they know. They do know. They've studied you. They've watched you. They've analyzed you. In a glance, they've gotten all the information that they need to know to be able to control you and infiltrate you. And there is nothing that can be done until you decide that you're going to do the work, until you decide that you're going to go back and take inventory and take stock and start removing the things and addressing the wounds, right? And loving yourself into completion, to start patching the holes within yourself. It takes time, but the person that's most easily affected by these things, the easiest to control, is a person who is oblivious to their own pain, a person that's oblivious to their own suffering, a person that's oblivious to their own limitations and weaknesses. And so when you understand what your weaknesses are, when you can name them, when you can address them as they come up, when you can be cognizant of like, oh, I'm getting triggered. Oh, that's a trigger. Or when you get hurt and just be like, oh, hold on, what's that? Like that's you taking the steps to plug the hole, to patch the hole, to repair the things. It's not one set thing that can be done for anybody's situation if you're listening to this, but literally it starts with you having the awareness of your weaknesses, of your trigger points, and going in and doing the work to patch the holes, right? And you cannot be manipulated and controlled by something that you already know is an issue, right? But if you are also in this point of where you're just wide open to being like, well, I'll do whatever, to make sure that I obtain my goals, that's a hole. That's a hole. That's a big hole. That's a hole. And that's one that they love to get. They love to get the ones that are desperate to achieve their goal. So understand the goal weakness as well. Goal weakness is something that is very easily taken advantage of by these nefarious entities as well for the aforementioned reasons. Anything that makes you an easy target and easy to control would be something that I would recommend that you sit very frequently with within your own mind and ask yourself why. Why? Because until you know the why, you're not going to be able to deal with it, right? No amount of earthly possessions or material gains should be worth your soul. You can't be saved if that's where you feel like it doesn't matter if your soul, your ticket out of here is worth nothing to you. It's not for you. You can't be saved. But for those who absolutely are like, no, I'm not trying to do that. But you know that you have been manipulated, that you know that you are easily tempted, you know that you are vulnerable to attack because of the aforementioned things. It's fine. It's easy to start the combating process here by again simply trying to have the awareness of it. What we have here is what the all the beings have deemed as a common enemy. Because there is a thing of where they have these nefarious entities have imprisoned those who were here first. If you know, you know, and they're trying their best to manipulate the universe. And that's not how that works. Manipulate the flow of life, of energy, and control what happens with humanity. There's not just one thing that's happening right now. And the ultimate goal is to have people divided. Because once you're divided, you are powerless. If you keep humanity focused on arguing over politics, religion, and ideology, people remain too distracted to examine the larger systems that are influencing them or the things that are manipulating them or controlling them. Whether one agrees with that perspective or not, it's worth asking who really benefits when people are divided and out of their body. So the final thoughts, if you truly want to understand what's happening, ask, seek, question, discern, and don't blindly accept everything you're told. Don't blindly reject everything either. Develop discernment, carry your own light, and continue to ask questions. The truth has a way of revealing itself to those who genuinely seek it and those who are open to receiving it. And on period. I mean, it's a beast to kind of get a grasp on, to understand, like we have all very much been lied to here essentially about everything. And it is always about keeping humans out of their own power. And then I would go a step further and say, keeping women especially out of their own power. Because women hold very strong intuition. And then also, I'll go even further than that, keeping men out of their feminine energy, right? So there was a focus on men being this very hyper masculine, I feel no emotions, no emotions here. Me man, me feel nothing. Like this whole type of thing by design. Again, the feminine energy is what holds the intuition. The feminine energy is what is very much connected to the spiritual world, is very much connected to your third eye, is very much connected to your crown chakra, is very much connected to your heart chakra, right? This is very much connected to your throat chakra. Masculine energy is very much your lower chakras, your root chakra, your sacral chakra, and your solar plexus chakra. Men tend to operate very frequently from the lower chakras, which is why they're very physical. Like right, it's all about the physical, very sexual, very very much like stable, grounded in earth. And they always call women very like emotional in the things of the thing, right? But when you have the agenda to shy away from femininity, the purpose is being to remove any ounce of intuition, any ounce of the connection to the spirituality, any ounce of the connection to the heart chakra, any ounce of the connection to the throat chakra, to remove the communication of the heart, of the things, of the mind, whatever you've seen, whatever you're seeing, right? So like even if there was a possibility that like we're speaking of like physical men. So like if a physical man even were to be able to have some access to their spirit, their intuition, their spirituality, but like the heart, the throat chakra is cut off, like you can't even communicate what it is that you're what you're experiencing or feeling. So it's like they've done a really good job of trying to keep both men and women out of balance, out of sync, and out of tune with their intuitions. And I think healing that, I would say for men, being okay with your emotions, being okay with feeling things, being okay with being sensitive, being okay with being emotionally mature, emotionally vulnerable. That is how men can ward off being used, right? Because again, that's a lot of men's Swiss cheese things as well, is that they don't have any of the aforementioned things, and they reject it all and they try to push it away, and they do whatever they can to make sure that they don't feel their feelings or emotions, or they can kind of put the ostrich, the head in the sand type thing of like, I don't see anything, I don't feel anything, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil type situation. But it really has the opposite effect. So trying your best to again look at the things that affected you in your childhood, in your formative years, and being okay with having your feelings, and being okay with being sensitive and emotionally vulnerable is your biggest step and key. And women, for you, your biggest step and key right now to be able to combat this is your intuition, is you being okay with leading, with stepping into your power, with being strong, with using your voice, with saying no, with setting boundaries, with not being like a little damsel in distress, with being okay with and integrating your dark feminine energy. Because when you're too much just like in the light, and I can speak from this from personal experience, when you're too much just in light energy, and you don't have a balance of your dark energy as well, or if you're too much in your feminine energy and you don't have enough of your masculine energy as well, then those are your some weak points for you, where you have kind of entry points, Swiss cheese points there. Because it's like, oh, well, thinking like lack of stability, thinking that you're lacking something external to you. And those lackings usually come from your lower chakras, which is usually handled in your masculine energy. So doing things like, again, trying to implement a little bit more of your dark energy, of your masculine energy, of being okay with telling people to get the F out of your face, of being okay with saying no and setting boundaries, of being okay with taking the lead, of being independent, of being, dare I say, the bad girl, because we have been taught to obey and be the good girl for forever. And again, that leaves you wide open. It leaves you wide open. So collectively, we have a lot of work to do. Collectively, the people of Earth still have a lot of work to do, but we are in the process of growing and changing and making. We've made a lot of progress. In the last 33 years, we have made a lot of progress on Earth, even though it doesn't seem like it in the physical, but maybe it does. If you look, like shit's going to hell in a handbasket right now, and it's because the stuff that's been happening in the spiritual is now starting to show in the physical world as a result of the things. And again, it's just so if you know situation. But there has been great progress, great strides and changes in the vibration and the frequency and the development of humankind, in the hybrids, in the beings of Earth over the last 33 years. And so I think that's a win to just say that. But in order to get through this last push of where the weak and the Swiss cheesy are being targeted, in order to get through that, it's really important to merge the two sides together, to unite, to come together, to love all of you. Love the parts of you that's weak, love the parts of you that's strong, love the parts of you that's light, love the parts of you that's dark, love the masculine, love the feminine, and to really create that wholeness and inner harmony within yourself, because a whole being can't be infiltrated. And yeah, keep the faith. that's what I have for you guys. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that I answered your questions. And stay vigilant out there. Peace, guys.